the real motivation to even join, like being part of the community initially, is to submit your assignments and get that constructive feedback from your instructor after you do that. So yeah, that was a trick.
Hello, everybody, and thank you so much for watching here today. My name is Jonah from Teachable, and today we are talking to Shidaun all about community, how they're building community within Teachable. And Shidaun, for anyone who's watching today who may not know who you are, can you give us just start out with a little description about yourself, what it is you do, what your community is about, and also maybe a little bit of how you got to this point where you're working for yourself, where you're building your own business.
Well, my name is Shidaun Campbell. I'm based out of Charlotte, North Carolina. I actually travel a lot. I'm a traveling dance instructor. I'm a professional dancer, and I've been going more into the administrative side lately, and that's kind of how we got here. I run an organization called the International Urban Dance Academy. It's completely online. We do in-person workshops here and there, but the whole purpose is to make learning accessible to everyone, no matter what place you're in, no matter what country you're in, no matter what profession you have. So I started this back in 2017, and it just started off with the idea of creating a DVD. It began to transition into something. I was like, okay, well, how can I put this online without just throwing videos up? How can it be a course? I'd seen a few courses online. People were doing, what do you call it, Udemy, um, different courses like that, and they had a certain structure, and I was like, this structure kind of works, but no one's done this for people. Aren't really doing this for dance, um, especially within the dance sector that I exist in, which is more of the underground, the street dance community, the hip hop community, right? Whatever you want to call it. And it wasn't being done, and I was like, okay, well, it needs to be done, and no one's doing it. So instead of complaining about it, maybe I should do it. So I began to work on that, and it was just me teaching. The whole purpose was for my students to have resources to be able to access outside of class. So I would give an in-person workshop. Let's say, for example, I did a 6-week residency in Tokyo, and the whole idea was, okay, how can they continue learning outside of class? Once I leave, how can they continue learning? How can they have refreshers from what they learn in class? And so that was the whole purpose. And then it began to just flower. And I saw other dances that were in other dance communities that were not being represented in the way that they needed to be, especially when it came down to having a record, really, having a record of the foundations of the dance, having a way for people to access those foundations in places where they don't have access to those kind of people, because these dances are being created in smaller communities, basically in the United States. So let's say, for example, we have Light Feet. Light Feet is a dance that's in New York. You need to go to New York to learn it if you really want to learn it. But if you're practicing already in all the way somewhere in India, right? Or you're in Pakistan, or you're in the Philippines, right? And you want to access an instructor, and you don't have money for private lessons, and you don't have the time for that, you can just log in and take this course. And so that was the idea. But you can at least learn the foundations without having to go on like the sea of information on YouTube or anywhere else, right? That was the idea behind it. And so now we have a big international community of people who are connected in that way to leaders within the dance community here in the United States. So it's a great thing. It's something I wanted when I was starting out my dance journey back in 2002, and I didn't have it. And I thought about what I could give people that I didn't have that could help elevate them. And yeah, it's been great.
That's so good. That's a common narrative with creators, that they built something that they wish they had had. So I love that impetus. So was the pandemic at all a spur for actually making it happen?
I had already started in 2017. So like
that you were fully launched by then.
We were already launched by then. And we had 2 courses, like 2 full courses. And these are like semester long courses, so they're pretty dense. It usually takes someone half a year to like 9 months to a year to complete. So we were already rolling, like, and so I was like, oh, good. But what the lockdowns did spur was the necessity for something like that for the general public even more. Like it was, and so you know, of course, the instructors were happy. They're like, "Oh, good," because we're struggling out here. The work is not coming. Like I had to stop teaching workshops. Like I'm like, okay, so I had to think about how I could like feed into this to begin to make to add to another source of income that I really wasn't paying attention to as much at the time. So yeah, it did have an effect. It had an effect on everyone, but especially on the people who were um, like the general public who could have been only looking for in-person classes. Now they're looking for online resources.
It sounds like you started with like just courses, like self-paced courses in that format.
Hmm.
When and how did you make the decision to start doing a community, and how does it serve those courses?
Originally, the course was set up so that there was a form of accountability. So we have homework where basically the homework is you finish a week of lessons and it's based on a certain subtopic, and you need to send in a video assignment. But I was just using Dropbox, and the struggle was real. It was just like, okay, I would get it, and then our instructor would be like, "Hey, did they send the homework?" And I'm like, "Oh yeah, I got to send you the link," and it was just not working. Um, and so I was trying to think of a way where students could submit homework and actually, like directly the teachers could actually just respond. And initially, I was trying to think of something that was more of a closed loop, so that they would feel, I don't know, like not as shy about it. Like, oh, I don't know if my dancing is that great. Let me not send it out so everyone can see it. But to be honest, the way the dance community is in person, I was trying to think of a way to kind of recreate that in a certain way, so that if someone sends something in, like everyone can see it and like kind of boost them up a little bit, right? And so, or give them constructive feedback. So if you have alumni in there, they can do that. So that's kind of how the idea started. It was just the idea of homework, like, okay, accountability.
When you looked at like community on Teachable, was that just an easier way to do the same thing, or are you doing has it opened new doors to how you're functioning in giving that communal space?
To be honest, initially the idea was, oh, okay, it's going to be easier just to do what I was already doing. And like as soon as we started doing that, it hit me like this is the thing that's been missing from the whole process. You know, it's kind of lonely just to take a self-study course by yourself, even though it's called self-study. Like it's just like, all right, well, it's just me. And you can kind of lose motivation, or you might lack the discipline to like follow through all the time. Like log back in every day or every week or even every month. And we've had students who will be like juiced. They're like, all right, I can't wait to take this course, and they start up, and within like 2 months, it depends on the student, but maybe in about 2 months, like you don't see them for like half a year. I can tell they haven't logged in for half a year, but I can't reach out to them the same way like I can now. So it just creates that sense of, I mean, community, as we're saying, but that sense of connectedness, that, like you said, during the pandemic, during the lockdowns, like people were really craving that, especially online. And I believe that's also created a kind of a culture of connecting online.
It's fun too because I think dance is such a physical thing. It would be hard to
Hmm.
imagine it in an online space. Like very practically speaking, are people uploading videos of themselves and then everyone's replying and engaging in that way?
Yeah, that's the idea, and that's what we're pushing for. Right now, it's mainly the instructors, and then every now and then you'll see someone chime in who's really
Sure.
active. And but we're trying to create that element, just like, I'm old, so I can say Facebook, but like sort of like Facebook groups. You get on a Facebook group, and like everyone on the Facebook group is seeing the same video, and they're putting in their 2 cents, in a very constructive way. And so that's what I want. That's the
Yeah.
goal right there. Yeah.
Are you finding it, because I talk to a lot of creators with community where just creating the community isn't enough, right? At some point it'll fuel itself. But are
Mhm.
you finding things that you're doing that are working to increase engagement, or how are you trying to foster that level of engagement that you're looking for?
What I've realized is people are event oriented these days, and especially now. The idea of something just happening the same way every time just doesn't cut it. So, it's like, all right, you submit a video, then you get feedback, then you submit a video, then you get feedback. And eventually, like, unless you're just really driven and you have something that's internally driving you, maybe you need something external. And, um, just me going in and like saying, like chiming in on people's stuff outside of the other instructor doing it, helps with that, kind of creating that. And actually doing live events. So doing a doing a free Q&A with the instructor, like just being like, okay, we're gonna do a Q&A. And people are excited to actually get to talk to the instructor, right? So having those kind of like online events, we might just like host them on Zoom or something like that, uh, has really helped, And even for the people who have finished the course, they'll be like, "Oh, good," because they talk to them online every day. They might look at them online. They might follow their Instagram or their TikTok or whatever. But to actually be able to communicate and then actually talk to other people in real time is different. So that helps. That kind of helps refuel everyone in the community. Looking at other ways to do it though. So I'm always open to, yeah, to more good ideas. Yeah.
How did you go about marketing your community for the first time? Did you find it was really different than a course? It just added value to the course? What was that experience having launched courses in the past?
I didn't feel like I had to market the community. I guess because it was a lesson in the course that was required. Like you had to go through that. Like if you want to get your certificate at the end of the course, you need to finish all your homework. You have to submit all your video, right? And so it's like, okay, like if you don't care about that and you don't care about talking to anybody, you're not going to click it. Because I in the beginning of the course it says join our community, you know and it's like within a lesson, and it's like click here to join our community before you get started. You're going to need this in the next couple weeks. And there are people who don't do it, and my thought is if they don't want to do it, it's probably for a good reason. So you know what I mean, like, all right, well, if you don't want to do it, we're not going to force you, but it's already tied in. Like it's already tied in, and so it wasn't really a situation where it was marketed separately. I know some people are like join our community, and it's like marketed outside of the actual course. And this is like an integral part of the course, so it's a little different than maybe the way some people are doing it.
Are you generally getting positive feedback from students around this community? Was there resistance moving from Circle? Is it feeling good generally for does it sound like for your audience and your students?
Yeah, it does. We haven't really gotten any resistance from the students regarding, okay, you all switched. It was like, okay, well, we need to do it. It was more out of necessity. Like they felt the necessity as well. Um, and that is because again, it's like tied right into the completion of the course. Like that's part of the community is part of the course itself. And it's a necessity in that way. So no, no real resistance in that aspect. With the resistance that is there, I don't see it because, and I think that's a tricky thing about online communities is you don't really see the people who aren't joining. Like there's something to be said. You see in real life outside, I mean, not real life, that's weird. Let me just call this real life. This is part of real life. In life outside of online, right? um, you know, you can tell who's not participating. Like you might, it's a different way of connecting. You might call your friends up and say, "Hey, y'all want to meet such and such," and like you're like, "Hey, so and so didn't show up. What's going on?" There's like that right. Um, but with these online communities, like the only way you would do that is if you're really focused on that person. Like, oh, okay, uh, student number 85 didn't they signed up, but they didn't join the community. And that takes a certain amount of focus that might not be necessary, or might, I'm not really sure. And there's a trick of how do you connect with a student who is not who didn't join the community, like how do you connect with a person? Do they even respond to their emails? you know we're not If they're not connected with us on social media, then we really have no way, outside of email, because that's the only thing that we're given when they register for the course. So is that really necessary, I guess, is another question. So it's out of sight, out of mind.
Yeah. And are
you
you
know
is most of your marketing for your courses and everything on social media?
Most of it is, even though a lot of people I speak to are finding us on Google search.
Oh, cool.
Yeah. Which I was like, oh, okay, I wasn't paying attention. When I interviewed some students, they're like, oh yeah, I was like looking up courses, and I came across the school, and I was like, oh, okay. So that's working. That's good.
Looking forward a bit, it sounds like community's working well enough you're going to keep it as part of the way you're doing it. I think it's really clever the way you're structuring it where it's a required element. I know when it's just additive, creators struggle to get people over there. What are the incentives? For your next semester, are you thinking of changing things? Are you thinking of doubling down more into the community? How is this impacting kind of your system for running things?
I'll say this is probably true for a lot of us, and I'm not going to blanket it for everyone, but um, there's a little procrastination going on here on my end, and I'm like, yeah, I need to do this, I need to do that. There's a list of ideas that haven't been executed, and so going into the next course, the next semester in the fall, I I really want to start engaging more individually with students. And this is it's made a big difference the last time I did that. Where I literally reached out to each student and was like, "Hey, how's everything going? Um, you know, would you like to get on a quick video call? When do you have time?" You know, and that's created a personal connection in the past where they feel more connected, I feel more connected, and you know I'm like, I enjoy it more. Otherwise it's just kind of transactional, and that's not why I created it. Like, I didn't create this for just as a sole source of income. Like, I didn't that wasn't the purpose. The whole purpose was to create something for people that I wish I had when I was on my path of learning. So a big part of that is community. Like, that's a huge the interpersonal connection to me was the highlight of that. Like, dancing was cool, but like the people you meet when you're out traveling, when you're dancing, when you're competing or performing or teaching or learning, like those connections, that's really what I was looking for in the end. And I realized that's what most people are looking for. um, yes, we are. It's a training space. It's for professionalism, but most people who come are really excited to meet other people. So I do want to double down. Like, I do want to put more energy into the community, and I want to do more live events that kind of foster that community, that kind of help. Uh, doesn't even have to grow the community. It can just be consolidating. It can be just strengthening the community that's already there. And so when other people do come in, eventually the gears are just moving, and they're taking over. And I don't have to come in and do that. But right now, like you were talking about before, like, we do need that push. You still have to keep pushing forward and like reminding people to tap in. And so that's what I want to do. I want to do a lot more of that.
And it sounds like so
Yeah.
you have multiple instructors working for you?
Right now, we have myself and two other instructors.
Cool. Is your goal for your business to grow like the amount of instructors working for you, or just to keep this tight crew and grow the business?
I would like to have a few more instructors, but quality over quantity, you know? Uh, and so one thing I've realized, and I see a lot of teachable courses. Like, in the promotions and all of that great stuff. And I'm like, man, this is awesome. I do realize that a lot of people have a lot of courses, and it works for that market, like their target audience. It works for that. And then within my school, it's like, okay, this is more like a very it's a boutique situation. This is a very like a very close knit community experience that I want to create. So maybe a few more courses, um, and they will be specific to different styles of dance under the urban dance umbrella, right? But for now, like we're just working on what we have and making that stronger. So that's really the goal for now.
You're in a unique space, I think, and probably pretty early in this space as far as like online dance communities that actually are offering courses and stuff. If you look at this space and what you want to do with it, with Teachable or outside of Teachable, are there specific tools or things you need that don't exist, or things you're hacking to make work for you? Specifically for like the
Yeah.
dance education world,
hmm
yeah.
Like in my dream, in my dream world, we have the online course and the community all tied up in like one page, like one visual experience. So, you know, you're watching a video, and like while you're watching that video and you're learning that, the video pauses and it prompts you to do something, and I've seen that on, there's another platform and I forgot the name right now. Man, what's the name? Anyway, there's another platform that actually has that option. I also work in instructional design, so I know you can do it with, let's say, articulate storyline. Like you can set it up where the video is a quiz, and 30 seconds into the video it stops, and it's like, um, I don't know if you're learning about fruits and vegetables. It's like click on the apple, and you're like you click on it, and then the video continues. And to have an experience like that with dance, like that would be awesome, because in a real class, like a regular in-person class, you can kind of have that experience. You can raise your hand and ask questions mid-class, and you can even look at another student and you can talk to them, like maybe not too much during the class, but but you can actually communicate. And so we kind of need that. Like we're missing that, because the goal is to really recreate in its own way the in-person experience online, because with dance, because that's something that we really crave. That's what we're looking for now, and we're kind of all creating it in our own ways. And my goal is to really just do it in a way that's healthy.
I know I kind of ask a version of this relative to community, but also
Mhm.
just like what's next for you? What
The goal here within the next year or two is to create more in-person elements. I will be traveling over the next 2 years overseas, and I do want to bring our instructors overseas to some of these communities they've been connecting with, and so they can have an in-person experience. They can get like the real deal, right? Uh, and so that's something I really want to do, is to create this holistic experience, whereas it's just like the reason I started it in the first place is to have the in-person process, and then like the online reinforcement, and just keep doing that. And I'm aware that that hasn't been happening, you know, and there are certain reasons that are obvious, right? Um, and it's something that can happen. So, like over the next 2 years, that's my goal, is to add more in-person elements, do more in-person workshops, to do maybe do a convention, to do a tour with our instructors or with select instructors, and connect directly with the communities we've been connecting with, and broaden those communities, and then reinforce them online.
as someone trying to do a very hard thing, which is replicate an amoeba of an experience like dance online, do you have one or two pieces of advice for people trying to do a similar thing? Because I still think in this industry, people don't even think this is possible to do well. So, like, if they haven't tried or been the student. So from your experience so far, what would you tell to someone starting out right now?
From a creative standpoint, the best piece of advice is not to reinvent the wheel. Like, there are already examples of things out there that we're just not looking at. And they might not even be in direct relation to dance, but they're already being done. Like, someone out there right now is is talking about augmented reality or virtual reality within a movement standpoint and something, right? Like, and we're probably sitting here saying you can't do that with dance, and it's already being done right outside of dance. You know, um, or live comments on a dance video, like a course video. You're like, oh well, you know, I've never seen that before. Yes, you have. You probably listen to SoundCloud, and when you watch the bar go across on SoundCloud, you see little comments pop up. Like, it's being done. It's just not always being done with exactly what we're working with. So, and there are things being done with what we're working with as well. So I think that that's one of the biggest pieces of advice is like, it's like, just look into it. Like, it's not completely impossible. It's already being done.
Thank you so much for talking to us today. Excited to check in a bit and see how your community's going. And yeah, appreciate what you do trying to foster a space online that is not easy to foster. Before we wrap up, where can people find you, learn more about you, watch your dance, all of those things?
My pleasure. Let's see. Okay. www.iuda.dance. That's International Urban Dance Academy. That is our website and our course. You can tag into all the communities that we have there in relation to the dances that we are teaching. At iuda.dance for Instagram and Facebook. And personally, I'm also on there, so you'll find me along the way. But my dance moniker is Africano, like African with an O at the end. So The Real Africano. You can find me on Instagram if you look that up.
Love it. Appreciate it. And hope to talk to you soon. Have a wonderful day.